Hey, how are you? Today we're going to talk about love and if your brain is actually wired to push love away or to struggle in love. And it's very possible that a lot of the problems that you are having in your love life are actually more because of a default mode that you really are struggling with changing. And it doesn't matter how many books you read or anything else, it really has to do with mindset and changing that default mode. It's actually a neural network you are being trained in, or that you are self-training yourself through a lot of bad experiences. So let me back up with that. Maybe you're training yourself to think a certain way about relationships and love based upon a lot of the experiences that you've had in life. So maybe you've had several or many relationships that you deem as failures, and through those relationships or through the bad experiences that you've had, you have trained yourself to think a certain way about love. So on the surface, you might say, I want to meet a great guy. I want love in my life. But if your belief system deep down on a very subconscious level is that, well, eventually men are going to hurt you, or eventually someone's going to walk out of your life, or eventually they're going to cheat on you, or whatever that belief system is that is ingrained deep within you on a very subconscious level, meaning it's not something that you topically think about. You don't walk around in the daytime and go, I wonder if who's going to cheat on me today, and things like that. So if on a subconscious level, you're thinking these thoughts, and it's even worse if it's on a conscious level, if you are thinking these thoughts on a daily basis and it's your belief system, so if it's your belief system, it's with you every second of every day, then whether you're aware of it or not, it's a belief system, then you're actually going to have behaviors and you're going to actually be attracted to people and experiences in your life that support the belief system, not what you want. I know I'm going to have to go over this a few times because some people are going to get it right away and some people are going to go, what the hell are you talking about, Michelle? So I had this client one time, and what was interesting about her is that on the surface, it would be someone that you would say, she has no problem attracting love in her life or attracting men and then getting to a place of love. But here's what was happening. She was actually attracting the wrong kind of guy, number one, and she was attracted to the wrong kind of man. And on top of it, when she did have a relationship with them, it was a very substandard relationship. And it always ended up with her in some deep pain and deep struggle. So it had already gone on many years before I met her. So during that time frame, she came into therapy just really focusing on, I want to find love in my life. I finally got her to open up about her childhood and about some of her early experiences in her teen years and even in her early 20s. And then it started coming together that her default mode was that she's not good enough, basically, that she is not to be valued and that she deserved to be abused. And that's what she thought. So when we started working on that, her default mode, and changing her mindset in what she felt about herself, her belief system, not what she on the surface was thinking. Because on the surface, she was saying, I have a good job. I know I'm basically attractive. I work out. I know I have a decent body. I don't know why I can't attract the right person. So on the surface, you would look at her, and on the surface, when you're speaking to her, she knew what she wanted. She would tell you the kind of man she wanted. She would tell you her accomplishments. She would go into all of that, but yet she was struggling. So she couldn't figure it out. I should also mention, she was also reading all the books. She had done everything in her power to find her twin flame, and she just could not figure it out. So, and we worked on her default mode, we were able to get her to that place. And then she was able to be in a different place where her belief system was different. Therefore, she was able to behave differently. She was sending out just a different type of energy. She had different types of standards, and she carried herself differently. She actually found love and is now married. But let's go to another place where you grew up with, you were trained early on by other people's experiences. So with her, she had abuse and she had all kinds of situations where she was training herself to think, I deserve this. I deserve abuse. I deserve to not have love. I deserve to, for her, it was, I deserve to have someone tell me that they love me, but they're really abusing me, so they don't. So that her belief system turned into that. Now, what about if no one's abusing you and you come from a pretty good home life, there's no abuse, but what if what you learned early on is that your dad can do whatever he wants and your mom just deals with it? You had a father or a mother who just sort of skipped out emotionally or even physically of your life, and you always felt that void of not being able to get love from that person. Or what if you heard people talking about their exes or even their spouses or their partners or your other parent, whatever it is, you heard a lot of negativity and degrading behaviors. You were learning early on, due to other people's lack of coping skills, that it's really a struggle to find love, and that love maybe doesn't always, you can't trust love. So somebody can be in your life and then maybe skip town and not be there for you. So if the person who is supposed to be your number one safe place, your mother or your father, and they are then someone who is not loving towards you, is not helping to take care of you, is not emotionally present. This is a big deal. Now, one thing that I do worry about a lot in this day and age is that a lot of people are emotionally not present because of their phones. So a lot of times, you see this all of the time. You can go to any playground anywhere and see this, where a mother or a father who is spending time with their child, but they're actually on their phone. So there's times where children are really trying to get the parent's attention and the parent is on their phone. My prediction is that these people that are doing this are creating children who need to do a lot of drama. So when they get older, their teen years, their 20s, they are going to feel like they have to be very dramatic to get attention. And they're going to have this idea that they don't really need attention. They're going to have low standards in their life for what they put. So they're going to put up with a lot of neglect and feel like that's okay because that's what mom and dad did, or mom or dad. So going back to being trained, because I kind of went off on a tangent there, if you were trained to feel like you are second best or third or fourth or not even on priority, you are going to go into your life, no matter what it is that you topically want, no matter what it is that you think that you know you want and how to get it, you're going to have a belief system that is ingrained in you, and it is your default mode of thinking and of being. So it's not just your thoughts, it's actually your very being, your core of who you are. Your default mode is, I don't deserve, okay? In whatever it is, I don't deserve love, I deserve to struggle, my mom struggled. This is interesting because also, if you look at your family and your family of origin, the people that were your role models, even if they were married, but they had a very loveless marriage, or if they were divorced, or if they never got married and there was a lot of problems in the relationship, your go-to, your neural network is already being wired at 6 months old, at a year old, at 3 years old, at 7 years old. You're already being wired in a belief system of what the world is. So for instance, you walk into a room and there's no electricity, but you have a habit of turning the light on. You go ahead and turn the light on and flick the switch. You go, oh, that's so silly. I can't believe I did that. I know there's no electricity right now. We just had a storm. Well, that's just one small example of how much we're on autopilot. How many times do you get into a vehicle, you don't actually have to sit there and think, okay, now I'm going to get the key, check to make sure there's gas. Now I'm going to make sure that this and make sure that that. You don't do that. You just kind of get in the car and go. Even the way you might eat an Oreo or a Reese cup, that's part of your neural network. That's part of your default mode. Some people eat around the edges. Some people just take a chomp. I mean, everyone has their way of doing things. The way you, even right now, the way I'm speaking with my hands is part of my neural network. It's my default mode. I'm not actually thinking, okay, Michelle, when you say this, bring your hand up to make a point. It's just part of my neural network, my belief system, and my being. So everything about us is part of that default mode. Now, I'm also a hypnotherapist, and a lot of times what we do in hypnotherapy is we just work on that default mode. So as a quick little sidebar, if you would like some hypnotherapy, contact me. So anyway, when you have a hypnotherapy, you're actually working on the default mode of someone. So when you have a default mode, and if the way that you are thinking is coming from a place that is based upon someone has said, you know what, if you had a single dad and your dad was saying that he didn't hate your mom, but she ran off and he didn't hate her, but you know, she wasn't really equipped to take care of you. Now, even though he's not saying anything negative against her, if he's not being positive about love, if he's not feeling and instilling in you that love is something very attainable, and just because one person had a situation doesn't mean all people are like that, if he's not really showing you by his behavior that love exists and he is filled with love and there is no bitterness and he is moving forward and all of that, then you might struggle. Why parents are so important to us and our neural default mode is because when we are born, we are very, very helpless. And we are born trusting on a very primal level our parents. So we come into the world with this trust and this yearning for mom and dad. We are trusting that mom and dad are going to be there and that mom and dad are a team, that mom and dad, that we're a unit, that we are just one close-knit unit and nothing can break us apart. That's how we come into the world. So even if you're a single parent, you're bringing to your child this unity, okay? So I'm not saying that if you're a single parent and the other parent's not around, that you're doing anything less for your child. We start to, no matter what, we start to wonder, what did we do wrong? Were we part of the problem? Were we not enough? Where is all of this coming from? How can you solve it? I mean, the number one thing that I have seen in therapy, and there's many studies on it as well, is that children, the number one thing they don't like is parents fighting, because it's so derogatory towards them. Because when they have two parents fighting, it's not just the bickering and the yelling that might be scary or annoying or stress inducing and cortisol rising, but it's also very much about a fracture. It's showing a lack of unity. And if there's a lack of unity, then there's a trust issue eroding in us. If you're aligning with anything that I have just said, there is definite hope for you. So your neural network, your default mode, is about unintentional thinking. That's about the habits that we have, our being, the way we think, our belief systems. But intentional thinking, deliberate thinking, is how we train ourselves out of that default thinking. So I don't care what happened in your past. I don't care what kind of traumas were there. I mean, I care, but for this, I don't care about it. I don't want these to be the crutches that are underneath of your arms holding you up, because trauma holding you up is going to always make you feel weak. I want you to get the visual that what you're going to be doing is kind of taking those trauma crutches away, and what you're going to do instead is to focus on loving yourself, number one, and tapping into the awareness that you think that you're on this very brainy kind of plane, that you're making all these decisions. I've heard this a lot, like where people will say, well, Michele, I'm totally intentional thinking. I do yoga and I meditate and I know when I'm going to get up and walk across the room, or I know when I'm going to get in my car and go to the grocery store or whatever. I know what I'm doing. That's fine. But guess what? Your present moment is on autopilot because the very idea that you are defending that you're intentionally thinking is itself, unto itself, is actually a coping strategy based upon habit and a belief system. Really quickly, it's all about your outcome and your happiness to know if you're actually in intentional living. But the bottom line is your behavior in whatever anything is. So how do we get from this neural default mode into something that is working for us rather than against us? Because if we have all of these feelings of love being a struggle or love being something that we don't have in our lives and we don't know why, we need to get to a place where we just sort of assume that we're going to fall in love and it's going to be great. Or if you're already in a relationship, you're just going to start to assume that, you know what, we can work through this. This is not that big of a deal. No matter what it is, we will work through this because we love each other. And love is going to be the foundation in which we navigate this relationship, instead of fear, instead of trauma, instead of baggage and crisis. There's one more example. I had a client once who came from a family of one parent was an alcoholic and one parent was a codependent and enabler. And there were several kids in the family. And so she initially called me and said, my husband needs therapy. He's cheating on me. And I said, okay, well, what did you find? Because to me, my husband's cheating on me. He either told her, she caught him, or she found something. That's the three ways that you know for sure somebody's cheating on. And she said, oh, well, none of them. I just feel it. And I said, okay, that can be, because people can feel a hunch and then they can go further with it. So he actually did come to therapy and time went on, and we even did neurofeedback and all of that. And I just really assessed that this man was not actually cheating. Basically, she was trying to tell me how I should do therapy on him. So I started seeing the controlling, even with me, that she was trying to do it. So then what I found out is that she came from a home where her mother was such an alcoholic that her mother would often just be passed out and the father would just put her in the bathtub. The kids would never have friends over because you never knew when mom was going to be very drunk or embarrassing or passed out or vomiting or whatever. to the point of the father, he was codependent and an enabler because he let all of this happen and it was allowing him to be a victim. Well, if he's a victim, then he needs to be saved by someone, right? So guess what? His secretary, who was about 20 years younger than him, was the savior. He actually would even bring the secretary home to have dinner with them, with the mom there. He was having an affair with the secretary, but made it look like he was just helping the secretary because she wasn't making a lot of money. These secrets in a family with addiction, or any family that's having dysfunction, is that the secret was everyone knew that dad was having an affair. Let's go back to what this woman's belief system was. The woman's belief system was, I am a woman, and in my belief is, and what I saw growing up is that men will act like they're nice to you, but will actually be cheating on you. And they will allow you to hurt yourself. So that was her belief system. No matter what she was telling me on the surface, when she told me that, I knew what her belief system was. And then it made sense why she thought that her husband was cheating all of the time. Now, his belief system was that because of his situation, that women are controlling and evil. Controlling and evil. Of course, they're in a situation where she's actually playing into his belief system because she's accusing him and she's getting all dramatic. So she's playing into his belief system, and he was a traveling salesman, and he was playing into her belief system. So we have two people that are actually helping each other's belief systems, and that happens all of the time. So if you're in a relationship where you can see where your spouse or whoever is getting his stuff and he can see where you're getting your stuff, that's because it's your default modes. It's your default modes. Okay, so it's not the love, it's the default mode that you're having a problem with. So this is what you do, because now I've talked for a long time about this. So what do you do when you have this default mode in your love life? You actually get intentional. Every time you start to have negative thoughts, or any thought that makes you feel that you're moving away from love, away from safety, and into a place of distrust, fear, negativity, any of that. And anytime that you accept being disrespected, when you can actually feel on a daily basis as your default mode, I have self-respect and I expect that he is going to respect me. Now, I know that you're thinking right now, well, that's easier said than done, and that's magical thinking. If you think that, you're in default mode. So I want you to get into a place where you do feel like that on a daily basis. And it might not be in the relationship that you're in. But I will tell you, when you're in a relationship and you begin to make changes, the other person has, it's called usually extinction burst. And that means you're making changes and it's forcing them to make changes. They usually kind of flip out a little bit and they don't like it and it becomes more dramatic. But usually after that, things even out and they see that it's not dangerous. Because remember, the default modes are why you are often attracted and together. So I know I've rambled about a lot of different things here, but it really is all about coming back to understanding the default mode. In order to change your belief system, challenge your current belief systems. What you see in the world, you're only going to see those things. If I tell you today, I want you to focus only on feathers, you're suddenly going to see feathers over the next week because now that part of your brain is kind of lit up and you're going to notice it. We can't possibly use all of our brain all of the time. We would be on overload. So we go into default mode. But when we initiate an area of our brain to not be in default mode, all of a sudden that seems more clear. So that's why practicing an instrument, you practice and practice and practice, or practicing ballet, you practice and practice until some of those learned behaviors become default mode, and then you can get to the next level, okay? So I want you to focus on your love life, but by focusing on your love life, I mean your love life with yourself and how much you're willing to challenge your belief systems and your very being, and realize that some of the struggles that you have in your life are actually from that default mode. They're not at all from the interactions, the fighting, the yelling, whatever has happened. It's not some of the bickering and stuff that you have. It's some of that default mode. And even the best of families can have some of that struggle, which is why a lot of families have very similar types of patterns. So a lot of our default modes are just there, and they're not as simple, unfortunately, as remembering to not flick a switch when there's no electricity. Sometimes it's really deep and it's really flicking the switch on for our love. Let me know how you feel about that. Let me know what kind of default mode you've been in. Go below and comment. please subscribe. I would love that. Okay, bye.